Okay, good morning. First of all, I want to thank TechHui for organizing this conference. It's just incredible to see all of you here on a Saturday. So, I'm going to talk about nanotechnology, and I don't know if that's going to be as exciting as the games as we have seen before, but I'll try. So, it's a small technology. Many of you must have heard and read and done some things on nanotechnology, but if you think about if there are, how many companies have actually products that's based on nanotechnology? And it's not that very often that you see and hear companies having products out there. I'm going to talk about Oceanit's nanotechnology initiatives today. We have, in the last 4 years, we have invested heavily on nanotechnology. So just to give you a brief background about Oceanit before we go into the details. We actually, on April 1st, we celebrated our 25th anniversary. We are about 160 people now, downtown Honolulu, and we have significant operations in Maui and Kauai. We have actually a one-man office in Washington, D.C. as well. Before we go into nanotechnology, I want to introduce myself. People call me Dr. V. Yesterday, I was on an airplane coming back from DC, so a couple of people was passing by. I was in one of the front rows, and they were like, "Oh, Dr. V," and I was like, "Oh, okay." They recognized me, but beyond that recognition, we actually believe strongly in supporting the STEM activities in Hawaii. To give you my background, I have my undergraduate degrees on mechanical engineering, and I come from India. And I have my master's from Florida, and I came to Hawaii for my PhD. So once I finished my PhD, I joined Oceanit. And during those days, initial days, myself and Ian Kitachi, my marketing director, you have to be careful when you hang around with Ian because you end up in so many things all of a sudden. So we actually visited many public schools here in Hawaii, and we figured out that there are so many programs, there's so much money, but eventually, unfortunately, it doesn't get to kids, and we wanted to actually reach the kids directly. One of the issues that we saw that the kids were not getting the science as a package, an exciting system. So once they get this excitement, then they will carry on. But we want to make sure that they get that exciting part of science. And on my other job, my regular job, I work at Oceanit as a senior nanotechnology engineer. I sort of have a mix of East and West. So I'm sure if you don't know my name, you would say the Indian guy. And so I get that from here. But when I go back home, especially, for instance, to give you a story, for my wedding there were about 1,800 people. So after shaking hands with all these people, I told my mom I need my space. Then my mom said, "You are Americanized." So I thought that was bad, here Indian guy and back home Americanized version. But I'm trying to take advantage of the mix of these cultures, and I think I'm hoping to bring this unique perspective both to work and then outside as well. And so at this point, I have my wife and my son here, so we consider Hawaii as our home now. On Hawaii News Now, on every Tuesday at 6:40, we do this fun, exciting, exploding science, and we try to excite kids. It's at 6:40. We have done about 100 shows already, and this is the third year of the show. So as I mentioned, that we seriously believe that the kids need to get the exciting part of science once they get it, and then they will carry on. Unfortunately, I'm sure this sounds a little bit harsh, but when I was growing up in India, I can say that some of the poorest, some of the least funded schools and public schools in India have better exposure to science and technology than here. So we always wonder, we see these big articles, we read these big articles saying that why India, China, Brazil is exceeding the United States in terms of science and technology, but the fundamentals are very clear. Unless and until you can reach these kids, there is no way you can get out of this problem. So we're hoping to provide that kind of a perspective using our TV show. And so what do we really do? So during the 25th anniversary, some people were so, so it was strange for them to see me at Oceanit. "Oh, you have actual work." They thought I'm just doing the TV show. So this is actually an interesting cartoon. One of the came from the marketing group, and it has my mustache. So it's me. Now, on nanotechnology, I just want to spend one slide on the exciting part of nanotechnology. It's actually a quite interesting area. If you see here, so basically if you look at the definition per book, nanotechnology deals with the molecular manipulation of materials. Now, when I say molecular manipulation, so let's get the size scale straight first. So if you look at the image here at the top, you see that the size of an insect, and you come down on the scale, you see the size of hair. The diameter of hair is about 100,000 nanometers. And if you want much better perception, you can see that if you take a sheet of paper, it's about the same size scale. Now, if you go down the scale, you will see somewhere in here 1 to 100 nanometer, and where the DNAs and the viruses fall in. That's the size scale we are talking about. Significantly small size scale. So 1 to 100 nanometer size scale. It's not only about the size, actually. It's much more than that. Materials behave a little bit strange. They have unique physical, chemical, biological properties when you come to that particular size scale. So interestingly enough, so I can give you some of the examples, like aluminum. We use a structural material, aluminum, but in a bulk scale, it's not that highly reactive or something. But when you bring it down to this size scale, nanometer size scale, or somewhere in the 1 to 100 nanometer size scale, it becomes all of a sudden like an explosive. So that's really strange. And in gold, you see the gold color, yellow color, the bulk scale, but when you bring it down to shrink it down to the nanometer size scale, the color changes. It's not only the color changes, it's total behavior changes. So people who try to explore and learn these properties are called nanoscientists, and people who try to incorporate these technologies and build something out of it, a bottom-up approach, are called nanotechnologists. Now, so those kinds of behavior, to get you that understanding, if you take in the bulk scale, if you have a cat at home, and if you see if you can shrink it down to a nanometer scale, all of a sudden the cat behaves like a dog. It's totally different. So that's the beauty of nanotechnology. Now, the interesting factor here is, if you can't see it, if you don't see it, it's even hard to see 100,000 nanometer, which is your hair. How do you manipulate this material? How do you grow this material? And is nanotechnology something new? No, it's not actually new. There has been evidences that the stained glass, using gold stained glasses, have been created centuries ago. But the optics, our capabilities on the optics side, on the devices side has changed, so we can manipulate these things now. You need lots of investment in nanotechnology to get around in manipulating this material and creating something new. Oceanit has invested, as I said, in the last 4 years, we have heavily invested in nanotechnology. So this is, as the collage you see, is the Oceanit investment, the lab and other facilities in terms of supporting the nanotechnology related efforts. So you can see we have all kinds of things, even from synthesizing nanomaterials to characterization, where you go to the extreme high-end microscopes. Now, in terms of nanotechnology efforts at Oceanit, we have a lot of things that we've been working on. Some of the things I can disclose are here. We work on acoustic tiles of the submarines. We work on a unique concrete, which is smart material. So I'll further detail the smart material specifically on the concrete side. And a fire shield material. We mimic the geckos to make dry adhesives. We actually, one of our earliest products were a surfboard using nanoresin. We work on energy-related areas where we work on the fuel cells and solar cells, conductive papers and nanobiotechnology and other things. And unique thing about Oceanit is that there is lots of different areas, you can think about lasers, you can think about anything in physics, chemistry, biology, nuclear, and any area that you can think of. So we make use of the interdisciplinary aspect, and that's what makes the research at Oceanit a little bit unique. Now, one product I want to concentrate a little bit more is the unique material that we developed recently. It's called nanite. It's basically, the idea was you can concrete material, concrete is actually one of the largest used material or material in the world, just after water. But this material is dumb, it's not a smart material. So we wanted to think of making this material as a smart material. Now, how do you make a smart material? So if you look at ourselves, we have a nervous system inside in our body which can respond if it is hot surface. If I touch there, I can actually pull my hand back because I get a signal and I'm responding to that signal. So what we did was we created an admixture that actually would go into the concrete during the mixing process. And what happens is that the unique properties of the admixture is when the concrete gets through the hydration process, this admixture helps, there is nanomaterial in it, it actually makes a network inside the concrete. So it basically acts like a nervous system, artificial nervous system inside the concrete. Now what you can do is, if you apply an external pressure to that concrete, it actually will give you a signal. And depending upon how much pressure that you apply, the signal varies. So basically you have a smart material. Now we did some of the initial demos on this material. So this is actually a video, hope it works. So basically what this is showing is we've made a very small cube of concrete and we have already this material inside. We added this admixture already inside. What we are going to do now, as you see here, we're going to put load on this material. Now, the display that you see here, the display will show you, corresponding to the load, what sort of materials we can, what sort of situations we can identify. So, for instance, if I stand on it, can you detect me standing on it? Or if there is a car going over the concrete, can we detect the car going on over the concrete? You see that there is a load being applied, and on the display here, as you can see that a load corresponding to a person, a small car, a truck. So I'm loading this concrete now. You can see the signal varies corresponding to a human being, a small car, and a truck. Now, when I unload, the beauty is when I unload this load, the signal comes back. So you can cycle it, you can use it repetitively. So we are further looking into this material and trying to commercialize this. The beauty of this admixture is when you touch materials like concrete, which has been studied for centuries, the important thing is the fundamental issue about concrete. You shouldn't touch hydration of concrete. So what we do is we don't actually disturb the hydration process. We actually enhance the other properties of concrete, such as the durability and mechanical performance of concrete. Now, the much bigger general picture of this concrete is you have a unique material, or you have a material that's been used for centuries, which is made unique by adding nanotechnology to it, which can bring you to an information technology business. It's basically collecting information now. Now, when you do the lab demos, people would say, okay, how about in the field? Did you do a field test? Okay, here is our field test. We can turn the lights off. Yeah. Is it better?
Yep.
Thank you, Dan. So this is actually we took this material to the field. You see on the screen here, this is the nanite, what we call the nanite, the concrete. You should watch the light indicator and then the load. So this person is walking onto this concrete. You see the light goes from green to orange. So it detects the person being there. Now, we took a car. You see when the front axle goes on the nanite, the light changes, and then also it gives you weight. Once both axles go over it, you get the total weight of the car. So you get the total weight, it's about 3,000 pounds. Now, we did another test with a different car on the same material and then see what happens. So this one, you should see that the light going from green to orange, and then once the back axle will go to the red and then it will finish off. So you'll see we can actually differentiate the front axle from the front weight from back weight, and also you can get the total weight. Where do we apply all these things? There are so many applications that we are looking into, especially in security-related applications. You have this sort of just monitoring what's happening, like using cameras and other systems. And actually, if anyone wants, if there's an intruder, they will just look for the cameras first. If there's no camera, if there's a camera, they will just destroy the camera first. But in this case, it's just more, you don't even feel that the concrete is a sensor. You just walk onto it and then it will be detected. Now, some of the applications that we are looking at these days is we're working with the Federal Railroad in terms of looking into the cross ties for the train. So when there is issues with derailment, so we want to make sure that we can track the signals from each cross ties and other stuff. So there are so many applications that we are looking into these days. Now, one of the other applications that we are looking into is coding applications, where, for instance, a good example would be a ship hull coding. The ship hull, based on the biofouling on the ship hull, anywhere from 30 to 50% fuel is consumed, and also the coating that's being applied on the ship hull is very heavy because of the biocide in it, because it's a lot of copper in it. So that consumes lots of fuel. So we were thinking about, we have some findings in terms of making these materials are hydrophobic, anti-biofouling, anti-corrosive, etc. I'll give you one example here. This actually, particularly this part, most of these technologies, and beauty of nanotechnologies, most of these technologies, most of this innovation comes from the nature. It's sort of inspired by nature. So for instance, if you look at the lotus leaf, it has this lotus leaf effect, what they call, very hydrophobic. But it still have a very thin, very fine layer of water being created on the top surface. I'll show you one of the materials that we developed. So what you're seeing here is the blue tape is a double-sided tape. So we put different surfaces on the top side. So this is actually a glass surface. We put a drop of water on the top surface. You will see the behavior of the water as it rolls off the surface. Now, the second one, these are familiar materials to us, so I just want to show you an example. Mica. So you see the behavior changes depending upon what surface it is. This is Teflon, one of the most hydrophobic materials that we use normally. If you're familiar with steel, the stainless steel, the reinforcements that goes on the concrete, this is silicon wafer. The last material that last demo that we'll show is one of the coating films that we developed. You can see that this is our coating film. You can see the water actually bounces off the surface. So it doesn't even roll, it just like bounces off the surface. So this has actually a wide variety of applications looking at the drag resistant and other steps. Now, the promise of nanotechnology, we can talk all interesting things about nanotechnology, but what is the promise of nanotechnology? It's been said that there's lots of studies that has projected nanotechnology to create a $1 trillion market by 2015. So it's not too far out, but it's like 3-4 years down there. And $1 trillion market, but that will take enormous amount of human resources. So for instance, it's been projected that there will be 2 million new jobs being created. I'm sure the president will be excited. So 2 million new jobs, and those will be at the high-tech side of jobs. And so this creates lots of opportunities for our kids. Now, what can we do being in Hawaii? Are we a big part of this whole nanotechnology initiatives? Not really at this point. If you go to the National Nanotechnology Initiative websites or NSF websites, you will see initiatives around the world. Even in the United States, you will see pretty much every state has a center of excellence in nanotechnology. Every state has a significant presence of nanotechnology. At least one center. But in that map, Hawaii is not there. And actually we are missing a big thing in science at this point in Hawaii, because if you look at the countries that put a lot of money in nanotechnology, it's actually United States #1, and then the other money comes from Japan, China, and Taiwan, and other areas. Look geographically where we are placed. We could be the hub of this new technology. We could be the facilitator of this new technology. We are in the middle of these two places. And we should be able to do much better than what we are doing right now. And to get excited, where can we get excitement? Where can we get something to contribute to this technology? Actually, if you look back into the pollination culture, there's lots of things popping up. Sorry. Okay, good. So if you look back what we can do, if you look back the history of the pollination navigators, we can learn lots of things from them. They just actually got onto a canoe. They started paddling and then paddling. But what they had were just actually some of the technological advances in terms of making the canoes and then the inspiration and the dreams of exploring places. So they eventually found out this paradise where we live actually. So what we think, at Oceanit, we think that we are actually ready to get on this canoe and then ready to paddle. But I don't think for a second that Oceanit by one company can do this by ourselves and create something here. We believe that it has to be a team. It has to be a team of companies in Hawaii that can create this incredible things in Hawaii, and we can actually get onto the canoe, paddle out there, look for the new markets, bring the resources that is required to build these things in Hawaii, bring it back to Hawaii and build it together so that our kids and that their kids can get an opportunity to live and enjoy the Aloha spirit. Thank you very much.
Quick questions for Dr. V? Questions?
Yes, sir. Please.
Have we been able to, or tried to this nanite into steel?
Nanite into steel.
The same. Because it seems very significant, like if you build bridges and stuff like this.
You're saying steel reinforced concrete or just steel?
No, just steel.
No, actually we haven't, because I think on steel, what we are looking into right now is materials that doesn't have significant amount of electrical response. Right now, that's what we're looking at. So if you take concrete, it's pretty easy, and it doesn't have an electrical response as of now. So metallic structures, it might be a little bit harder, but we can make coatings. So we are looking into concrete, paints, and other coatings materials at this point.
How about asphalt?
What's that, sir?
Asphalt?
Definitely, actually, that's something we started thinking a couple of years ago, and then many people, they don't like us. We said we can increase the durability of asphalt, but they don't want to. They want to sell more asphalt. So we were excited, and we approached a couple of asphalt companies, and then we said, oh, we can do some things. And then they said, okay, good luck, and then they didn't want to talk to us. Definitely. So another important part, in the same way, concrete actually creates. This has a green aspect to it, because if you can increase the durability of concrete, if you can increase the strength of concrete, you don't have to use that much cement. So that reduces the amount of cement that you use in construction. So that in turn reduces the amount of carbon dioxide being released, because cement manufacturing creates about 20 to 25% of the carbon dioxide emission that we have now.
What's
Yes?
the barrier to the basically the commercialization of nanite right now?
Yeah, barrier would be, everyone would ask you, so I was in DC this last week, and then we went to several places, they were all excited. Second thing they will ask, did you try it anywhere else? So they all want to see someone else using it. So it seems like we have some traction. It seems like our next step is basically pilot. We're just going to do pilot in different places. And unique things about here, which is sort of a barrier, as you're saying, this is actually something very new. People are not used to it. If it is just about the durability of concrete or the strength of concrete, there are standards and ASTM standards where you can test and then verify. In this case, there is no standard to follow. This is the standard. So that's actually a barrier.
I know some places.
Yes, sir. Hey, hi.
How expensive is it to coat material?
Very important. I think I missed that point somewhere. It is very cost effective. That's one of the important things. From an administrative standpoint, we don't expect to increase the cost more than 8 to 10%. That's one of the biggest challenges in terms of bringing any nanotechnology related products into the market, the cost. But this doesn't increase more than 8 to 10%. Yes, sir.
When you're increasing the durability of the material, is it regenerating your product?
No, it's not regenerating the product. If you look at durability, so if you look at the definition of durability for concrete, it's basically in many ways. So mechanical performance, alkaline reaction, corrosion, and other stuff. So we don't actually modify the entire material. We are just making an additive to the existing material. So if you think about, they already add corrosion resistant additives already. So in this case, it's an additive that could potentially replace all those admixtures.
Okay, I think we're about at time.
Thank you very much.